Okay, welcome everyone to another class of contemporary economic issues. The issue on the table, to quote Hamilton, is how can international trade be a Pareto improvement for two countries? In other words, it's not a zero-sum game where you lose and I win, but it actually causes both countries to win. Remember, I prefaced this with I showed you a tweet from our current president saying trade wars are good. They're easy to win. All you have to do is stop trading and you win the war. It's so wrong. I can't even describe the ways that that's wrong using economics. But what I can do is give you an economic lesson that shows you the opposite, which is that if you have two countries like the United States and Germany, and you consider what would these countries do if they were not allowed to trade, if they just had to, if there was a trade war, basically a trade war means you don't trade with each other. That's what that means. You make it difficult to trade with each other. If that happens, well, okay, fine. Each country will just make whatever goods it wants to for its own citizens. That's fine. I mean, that's not the end of the world. You could do that. We could produce. So let me say this. I think the United States in particular is lucky. We have a lot of natural resources. We have petroleum reserves. We have lots of lumber. We have fields that are fertile to grow lots of different types of crops and textiles. We could make a lot of the stuff we need ourselves if we wanted to. But that's not what this lecture is about. This lecture is about global economic trade and a mathematical demonstration of the benefits of that kind of trade. Of course, we don't want to go too far and say, everyone should trade with the lowest, dirtiest country and labor standards don't matter and, just do everything at the lowest possible cost. I'm not saying that. This is actually, step one is to show you why trade wars actually are not good. They're not good for people. Okay. By the way, though, did anyone answer my question? Of course, it was optional. I didn't force you to do this, but let me restate in the chat what the question is. Here's the question. Or I'll call it a problem because it's a problem that you can solve. Problem. Explain using numbers how using specific quantities how both the US and Germany can end up with more cars and more airplanes. I'm not talking about more of one but less of the other. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about more of both. And both countries. Seems impossible, right? How could the US get more cars? The US gets more planes. Germany gets more cars. Germany gets more planes. All four of those things have to happen in order for you to solve this problem, which makes it not easy, which means why I want to go over it with you. Okay, explain using specific quantities how both the US and Germany can end up with more cars and more airplanes. I'll just shorten that to planes. I don't know why I said airplanes. More cars and more planes than if they had more cars and more planes by opening up their economies to international trade. So that's what we're talking about right now. We're talking about international trade. By the way, on Friday, we're going to have a debate about one specific trade agreement, which is called USMCA. I think we'll get a little bit, hopefully, if you guys don't mind. Was it Nick and Ryan, Nick and Robert? I forget who's talking. But if you guys are going to get a little bit more into the weeds of that specific trade deal, it's also not just about opening up the countries to trade. Of course, it's involved. That's what it does. It makes it easier to trade between the U.S. and Canada and Mexico. But it also regulates trade in certain ways. It manages trade, and whether or not it's good, it's almost a different issue than what I'm going to tell you about right now. Because right now I'm just telling you about, if you crunch the numbers, trade helps both countries. It's easy to see. It's hard to calculate, but it's easy to see once it's been calculated. Okay. Yeah, so Friday we'll talk about that specific trade deal and the costs and benefits of that trade deal. But okay, everyone see the problem? Actually, does anybody think that they could do that? Oh, I have to give you I have to tell you what the PPFs are. Let me do that now too. I think I did yesterday, but I will draw with green the PPFs for both countries. Let me recall, I think, does anybody remember what I said? It was like in the thousands. I remember this. I remember that the US had a opportunity cost of 100 and Germany had an opportunity cost of 200. That's what I said. So I need to draw that. That's kind of what matters, is that I get that right on this graph. So maybe let me ask you, which line should be steeper? The US or the Germany? Right now I'm going to draw a line that represents the production possibilities frontier. And so far what I've told you is that US has a ratio of 100 cars per plane. Germany has a ratio of 200 cars per plane. So I'm not sure how much experience you guys have taking concepts and putting them into graphs, but I have to say that's what a lot of what economics is. Certainly when you're talking about economics instruction, saying, here, let me explain this to you. Here's a graph. The graph will explain it. So I've been a professor for a long time. I have some experience with this, but maybe you guys don't. So here's a nice time for you to practice. What should these PPFs look like? All I've told you is that for the US, the opportunity cost is 100 cars per plane. Germany, the opportunity cost is 200 cars per plane. So I'm going to make they're going to look like two triangles. Which triangle should be steeper? You guys have an answer? Somebody answered. The US line should be steeper. Okay. You guys agree? I agree. I think you're right. Thanks, Colin. Because if you think about it, for Germany, like let's say one plane is equal to 200 cars. Imagine that line, how flat that would be. Whereas here, one plane equals 100 cars. That line wouldn't be as flat. It would be a little steeper. And we're going to adjust the axes to make this graphs work, usable. I'm using this whiteboard on Zoom, so it's not that great anyway. I got to make sure you can see what I'm doing. But by the way, Colin is correct. How about the sizes? I said that US had a larger economy. So actually, now we're not talking about the slope of the triangle. We're talking about how big is the triangle. The US should have a bigger triangle. So the US should be steeper and have a bigger triangle. I will try to draw that now in green. Let's make this the US. Let's just make it 45 degrees approximately. And for Germany, let's make it smaller and steeper. Something like this. How's that? I think I did a pretty good job. Okay, you guys, those of you paying attention, do you get what I've just drawn? It's called the production possibilities frontier, and it represents all of the cars and the planes these two countries could make. They actually have the choice. They could produce anywhere along that green line. And so the green line actually represents the trade-offs between, am I using this factory? Like we have giant factories in this country. Boeing is one of the biggest buildings in the world. The way that the Boeing manufacturing building is. You could take Boeing and say, you know what, change it now. We want you to make automobiles. Change car, use the same space and a lot of the same technology, but make cars instead. Or some of the Ford, GM manufacturing could say, you know what, transfer that into play. And anyways, I think that's what the green line represents, the sort of trade-off between these two products. Okay, now I want to talk about what would be some, I think I got to do some numbers. Let's do some numbers. This takes a long time, actually. I want to say the US, let's say it really doesn't matter where you start. But I believe I said, it doesn't matter. Let me, for the purposes of this exercise, I don't want to work with millions or thousands. I'm gonna drastically reduce the number. It doesn't matter. Like if I say the quantity is 10, you might say, that's ridiculous. The US makes more than 10 cars. How could you say quantity is 10? Well, maybe 10 represents millions. 10 is a million, so 9.5 is 9.5 million. Okay, that's just units. It doesn't matter. So I'm going to say, just for kind of simplicity now, that the US produces, US produces 10 of each, I believe. And no. Oh, I can't grab that. Okay. Delete that and put it, you know what, I'm just going to say maybe 10. Oh, this is harder than I thought it would be. And say there's a point on, oh no. Yes, here we go. There's a point on the PPF that the US decides to produce, and it's 1010. That this green dot represents 10 planes and 10 cars. Sorry. Okay, how about Germany? Well, they produce a little bit less of each. Maybe it's, because for the purposes of this exercise, Germany has a smaller economy than the US, and they produce, it doesn't matter, let's say 6 planes and 4 cars. I'm just looking at the graph. Oops, select this, put it there. Okay, the question, and this is the closed economy. This is the closed economy. The green represents closed economy. The question now is, what if international trade occurs? Can we get what we want just by leaving the green dots the same and trading? This is a question for you if you're paying attention. I'd love for you to answer. Get another better circle here. Better. If we stay at these green dots, is it possible to just trade cars for planes? And by the way, graphically, what do we want? We want to consume at some point that's outside of the green line. We want to consume at some point that's beyond what was possible before. The P, the second P stands for possibility. We want to do the impossible, which is consume at a point to the above and right of the green line. I think I usually use the Socratic method here by asking you to tell me. I don't think there's time. I just have to tell you. It kind of sucks if no one's paying attention and feel like I'm just talking to myself, but there's no time. I gotta just talk to myself. The answer is no. There's no way to consume at a point outside of the green line for both countries if you stay at the green dot. What needs to happen? The answer is specialization. This is the key. If you take nothing else away from this lecture, what I want you to realize is that the gains from international trade, almost exclusively, these gains, by gains I mean the fact that people are made better off, come from the specialization of countries toward whichever goods they have a comparative advantage in. Yesterday or Monday, I gave you these definitions of what it means to have a comparative advantage. The theory of international trade is if countries specialize in the goods where they have a comparative advantage and then trade with other countries, by definition, almost by necessity, they will be able to be better off. It'll be better for them to trade, to specialize in some good, and now they have an excess of it. They can export that good, and they can import the other goods that they didn't make quite so much of. That's the theory of specialization. So what does it look like mathematically? That's why I actually put numbers in here. Oh, does somebody have a comment? No, what is that? Okay. So let me explain the theory of specialization with this example. Or you can, okay, I'm going to use the Socratic method a little bit. Which countries should specialize and how? US, Germany, what should this specialization be? So let's say red is specialization. I want to make red dots now for the specialization of each country. Did I do this wrong? I'm starting to doubt now something about. I actually made the steepness wrong, didn't I? I apologize for this. I'm starting to doubt now I think the US PPF is fine, but is the Germany PPF not the way it's supposed to be? Well, what did I say about Germany? I said one plane equals 200 cars, didn't I? Oh shoot! It should have been steeper the other way. This was a test. You all failed. This line should have been steeper, not flatter. Right? Or no, sorry, should be flatter, not steeper. This Germany PPF can't be right. You said US was steeper, yes, and in fact, I actually drew Germany steeper. So, dang it. I want to try to clear this green line. I can save this. Wait. Clear this. No. Oh, erase this. I erased that too. I apologize, guys. I want to erase just this line. Yes. Okay. Let me draw the right line. I just noticed once I asked you this question about specialization, I was looking at the graphs and was like, okay, so Germany should specialize in planes. That doesn't look right. It's because I drew the wrong slope of the PPF. Let me just draw it again. I apologize. And the worst thing is that I've taped this, so everyone in the future watching this will be able to see my mistake and will definitely think less of me because of it. I may actually have to redraw the dot too. I don't like where that dot ended up. Erase. No. No. Draw a circle. I'm going to put it right in the middle. I don't want to fuss with this. And we'll say, who cares what it is? We will care, but it actually looks like, would it be more cars than planes? Like, how about for the purposes, let's just say it's 5 and 5. Okay, it's that simple. I don't know why I said 6. I don't know why I made them different before. It seems like I'm making it harder for myself than it needs to be. Okay, so paint the picture again. We have a situation where Germany has a smaller economy, so they have fewer planes and fewer cars. Remember, these units might be in the millions or the thousands. Who cares? But the U.S. I think now, have I made it steep enough? Okay, my question was, what should we do in terms of specialization? And okay, so the units do matter when I'm talking about the opportunity cost. Let me actually write the opportunity costs here. How about in red, something like this? Opportunity cost. What? It all turned black. Okay. Opportunity cost, I'm just call it OC, is equals, I'll say one plane equals one car. So that's the opportunity cost in the US. Remember, the units are sort of different. Here, the opportunity cost is one plane equals two cars. Okay, I'm trying to make this difference kind of stark. You know, the opportunity cost differs by a factor of 2 between the US and Germany. Let's get to the point. The point is, by specialization and then trade, what do you do? What do you do after you specialize? Well, you trade, you export the thing that you specialized in, and you import the other things that you didn't specialize in. That's the theory. So now I think I can ask which country should specialize in which directions. I will make that using red dots, and I will do that now. The answer is Germany should specialize in cars, right? You agree? Oh, that's green. I wanted red. Let me delete that. There we go. Red is the specialization. Somebody had a chat. Oh, just that you agree. Okay, thanks. So what is this new? I'm gonna text in red what this is. They gave away 5 planes. So how many cars do they have now? They gave away the production of 5 planes. That means they get the production of 10 cars plus the 5 they were already making. This is actually the point 0.15. Would you agree? 0.15. What is that? What is that red dot? It's what Germany does after specializing toward the good where they have a comparative advantage. Remember, they have a comparative advantage in cars because their opportunity cost for a car is lower than the US's opportunity cost for a car. I'm using all of these terms that I defined the last class. If you don't remember these terms, maybe go back and look at the last lecture. Okay, I've got to go. I'm running out of time here. How about the US? Well, the US needs to specialize too. But here's the thing. They actually should not specialize all the way. Can anybody answer that? Why? What happens if the US says, okay, I'm going to make no cars. I'm going to make all planes. What if they did that? How many total cars would there be? The answer is 15, right? 15. Is it possible for the US and Germany to end up with more cars if they started with 10 here and 5 here, and if that sums to 15? If Germany's making 15 and the US is making 0, then it's not possible for them to both end up with more cars. We want the US to have more than 10 cars. We want Germany to have more than 5 cars. That means the US has to make at least 1 car. You see that point? It's a little subtle. Let me restate it for posterity too, since I know this is being recorded. Here's my point. The larger country, the US, in this model, should not specialize all the way toward the good where they have a comparative advantage. That would be a mistake. In other words, the larger your economy, the less extreme your specialization should be or needs to be. The smaller your country, the more extreme your specialization needs to be in order for you to get the benefits of international trade. This has huge implications if you think about a really small country, some country like a country with a very small economy, like Senegal in Africa. If they want to enjoy the benefits of international trade, what do they have to do? They have to really specialize in whatever they have a comparative advantage in. They have a comparative advantage in something. It might be textiles or some kind of specific little agriculture or specific thing. And it's important to realize that this actually could be dangerous for this country. What if you're a small country in Africa and you specialize totally in this particular type of textile? That's what everybody in your country is working on. If all of a sudden there's like a war or something that happens and you can't rely on people importing goods to your country anymore, you're in grave danger. What has to happen is international organizations may try to mitigate this and make it safer for countries to specialize. We have the World Trade Organization that that's one of its goals, I think, is to make it safer for countries to engage in world trade. But it's also, I think there's also a criticism that they are doing it sometimes too much at the benefit of the larger countries and not enough for the smaller countries. But that's a complicated issue. I don't know how to answer that other than we happen to live in the largest economy in the world, the United States. And so it's easy for us to say, well, we should all just specialize and then, you make all of our cheap plastic stuff and we'll buy it from you. You make all of our, our furniture. We'll buy our furniture from you. These countries don't necessarily want to specialize all the way into whatever these goods that we want to buy. And that's something that needs to be acknowledged. Okay, for the purposes of this exercise, the point is the US shouldn't specialize all the way, not all the way to only make planes. What they should do is, how about halfway? Halfway will work? I think it will. Let's look at halfway. If they go halfway, then they'll be here, which is, oops, why can't I draw a circle? There it is. That circle should be 5 and 5, right? What will happen then? We'll have, no, sorry, it's 5 cars, but 15 planes. So there'll be 15 total planes. Oh, that's actually not enough planes, is it? Not enough planes. So we need to specialize more than that. Does it matter where we go between 0 and 5? No, doesn't matter. Pick whatever you want. Can I move this? Yes, I can. Let's say they make 2 cars and 18 planes, because I just feel like it. It seems like an easy number. How do I draw that text here? So this is 2 cars, 18 planes. Does everyone understand my coordinate system? The first number, I'm using the standard coordinate system where the x-axis is first, then the y-axis. You should have learned that in middle school. But anyway, so 10, 10 refers to 10 cars, 10 planes, 5 cars, 5 planes. This 0, 15 is 0 cars, 15 planes. This is 2 cars, 18 planes. Now let's look at the total amount of cars and the total amount of planes that can be redistributed through international trade to these 2 countries. Let's look at that. Okay, we want the US to end up with, can I delete this thing here? I think we know this is 10, 10. I'm gonna delete this too, and you can always go back and look and see what it was. I want to now use blue dots to say, and I can have arrows too. I'm excited now about the arrows. Here's what I want. I want to get an arrow that will take me there. Okay? I'll take you there. And that blue arrow is going to represent international trade. It means imports and exports. Okay? That's what the blue arrow means. If it's going down, that means you're exporting that thing. If it's going up, it means you're importing that thing. And I also want a blue arrow this way from Germany. This is actually pretty cool, guys. These arrows like totally worked out. I mean, I don't know if you think the arrows are cool. I'm sort of geeking out here over this whiteboard function on Zoom. It's actually not bad to teach this particular lesson because hopefully you can see that there's a way to end up where I would starting at the green point as the closed economy. then moving to the red point, which represents specialization, and then ending up at the blue circle. I need to draw a blue circle here. Here we go. The blue circle is, oops, oh, did it do it? And it's a tiny circle, but yeah, it did it. All right, the blue circle represents the open economy. Green is closed, blue is open. Red is specialization. I love it. I think it's great. But we haven't worked out the numbers yet. What are the numbers for the blue numbers? Okay. We can work out exactly how much is traded. Here's what's traded. Well, let me do this in text in blue. Can you guys tell I'm getting excited about this? I'll just write it here. Here's what's traded. Blue. I wanted to do it in blue. Okay. U.S. exports how many planes to Germany? Well, they starting out with 18. They need to end up with at least 10. So let's say they export 6 planes, okay, to Germany. I want this to be all in one line. There we go. And what about Germany? Germany exports how many cars? Well, Germany needs to end up with at least 5 cars. The US needs to end up with at least 10 cars in order for this to be a Pareto improvement. So the US has 2 planes right now. They need to end up with at least 10. Maybe it's 10. Oh no, that won't be good because then Germany won't have enough. Let's say 9. 9 should work, right? Germany exports 9 cars to the US. Following me? What does this mean? We can now say what the blue dots are using numbers. Remember, that was the problem. The problem that I chatted to you in the beginning is use numbers, use a quantity to show how international trade represents a Pareto improvement. It's not a war. It's not a war like Trump thinks that, you know, there's a winner and a loser and all you have to do is stop playing and automatically you win the war. No, both countries benefit. Here, and let me show you how. What the blue ends up what? So starting at the red, which is 218, the US gains gains 9 cars. So 2 plus 9 is 11. They started with 18 planes and they exported 6 of them. So they end up with 12. Look at that. 11, 12. Okay, how about Germany? Germany started with, has 0 and 15, but they get 6 planes from the US, okay? They export 9 cars, 15 minus 9 is 6. Look at that. It's more. Let me do in green. I deleted the green numbers, but I want to put those back on. You guys probably are like, why does he care so much about international trade? I don't know if I do. It's just I think it's a cool demonstration. 10, 10 is the green, and here 5, 5. Got it. You guys see what's happening? I think it's cool. The blue circles are outside of the production possibility frontier, the green line. And in fact, if we started at the green dot and we specialized to the red dot and we traded to get to the blue dot, if we did those things, then both countries get more of both goods. That's the lesson. Any questions? I sound so smug, like, ha, I showed you guys. Okay. If I ask you this on a quiz, you think you could answer it? With like different numbers. What if I ask you something different? You know, probably, let's be honest, we will have a quiz over this. I don't think I will care so much about you calculating exactly what the right specialization is or what the right trades are. But I do want you to understand this concept. What is the economic theory behind international trade and the benefits of international trade? Okay, well, it's countries should specialize in whichever good they have a comparative advantage in. Then they should trade using imports and exports with other countries that, you know, export the thing they have the advantage in and import the other things. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing now. Somebody have a chat. 10 cars. Oh, you were answering something else. Okay. With the remaining 10 minutes, sorry, that's not a lot of time. I did have some slides that I guess I'm not going to have time to go through, but they are on Blackboard. If you look at lecture notes, I'm gonna kind of quickly talk about international trade. My international trade lecture notes. We started doing them Monday, and I want to kind of see what else I can do in the last 10 minutes to talk about these. Some of the issues involved with international trade. So far, I've just made it seem like it's such a great thing. We should all do it. But of course, there's some issues involved. It's thinking. Share screen, international trade. Okay, here's where we are. Slideshow. Enable editing. Come on. It's really slow. From current slide. All right. This was the example I gave you. You can see I had a example of planes and cars with Germany and US. That's the example I just gave you. I was planning to give you that example, and I did. And you can see how it's at least a Kaldor-Hicks improvement for both countries. You remember the difference between Pareto improvement or Kaldor-Hicks improvement? The difference is whether or not the losing parties are actually compensated. In a Pareto improvement, it's not a Pareto improvement unless everybody is compensated for any potential losses. Like, let's say you're in the US and you make cars and they close down all the car factories. That like sucks for you. You wish they hadn't done that. It could still be a Kaldor-Hicks improvement if that happens, but it can't be a Pareto improvement because your life was made worse because the car manufacturing ended. You could think of the government as playing a pretty important role here. In order to get something from a Kaldor-Hicks improvement where the winners could hypothetically compensate the losers, in order to make it, instead of just a Kaldor-Hicks improvement, a Pareto improvement where the winners literally do compensate the losers. Whoever, people who lose their jobs, they get some kind of benefit from the government that compensates them for this loss. If that happens, then it's like, well, it's obviously better. Everyone's been made better off. Okay. We can talk a little bit about foreign direct investment and how it can help an economy grow. What is foreign direct investment? It's this, a parent company, you invest capital or you transfer technology to a foreign country. Typically what happens is you create either a multinational or a transnational corporation. And these are huge. Over 20% of global GDP comes from these transnational, multinational corporations. It's happening. Globalization has been a very real thing for several decades, and we should at least think about that too as a way of, remember the international trade example I gave was just each country on their own specializing, but there's this intermediate thing where I don't even have to export because I'm already in your country. An American company that makes planes somewhere else, or a German company that makes cars here, sort of gets some of the benefits of the at least of the technology. You can certainly think of this in maybe Southeast Asia. An American company builds a factory in Vietnam, and rather than saying, each country is going to specialize on its own and then trade, this is sort of like a middle ground where you really streamline the trade by having a transnational corporation, multinational. Of course, there are some issues involved here, though. I don't want you to think I'm just somebody who thinks, of course, you should create a transnational corporation. Yeah, it can be good. it can increase the production that, here, let me say, the foreign affiliate usually has cheap land and labor, but the parent company has good entrepreneurship, capital investment, and technology. So you can combine those to increase production. It usually does increase production to create these transnational corporations. But what's some negative aspects of it? They can be used as tax shields. It can be used as a tax shield. You want to make a bunch of money, but claim your profits somewhere else, and then you don't have to pay taxes on it. There could be issues of diffusion of responsibility. I don't feel responsible for it because it's not, it's not American workers who are having these really poor conditions. It's people in Bangladesh, and you're buying something from an American company. Little did you know that the human rights violations were occurring, and the transnational corporation may actually make it easier to benefit from those. And so this is one of the negative aspects of TNCs. Little time here, so I'm going to go fast. Does it matter if winners are compensated, losers are compensated by the winners? I don't know. What do you guys think about that? If we say we're going to talk about the USMCA, there's going to be winners and losers of that. Not everyone benefits from these free trade agreements. Does it matter if we find some way to compensate the losers, or is it a good thing whether or not we compensate the losers? What do you guys think? This was meant to be a probing question to say, I know class is almost over, but it leads us well into our next discussion of the USMCA. I put this thing about the creative destruction of the West Wing. It's probably my second favorite show of all time. I do love the West Wing, and in it, the president of the United States, whose name is Jed Bartlett, he's portrayed by Martin Sheen, is a Nobel laureate in economics. Wouldn't that be awesome? Wouldn't that be awesome if we voted for somebody to be president who had a Nobel Prize in economics? That's what happens in the West Wing. And not only that, Jed Bartlett is just a great, great president, if you've seen the show. But one thing that he talks about with his staff and with the country is this idea of creative destruction. He really believes in free trade. He's a free trade guy. And he realizes that there are things like, the buggy industry is destroyed when automobiles come around. And, free trade may seem like something which it's not worth it. Okay, fine, we're progressing, but it comes at a cost. And he acknowledges that. Jed Bartlett is a very honest, moral person in the show. And he wants to talk to these people who've lost out. He wants to acknowledge that and still make this argument, the economic argument, that the destruction of certain industries and certain whole sectors of our economy, it may seem devastating, but in the long run, it will be good. It will create newer, higher paying jobs. It will create prosperity that, if we do the right thing, can be shared by all. Okay, that is my pitch for The West Wing. It's a show that was from the 1990s and early 2000s, so before you guys were born, probably seems like a really old show to you. Anyways, should we stop there? It's about 10:50. What else do I have? Worker exploitation, whatever. If we feel like talking about this later, we can. I think this will all bleed into our debate on Friday. So I don't think I will have a quiz over free trade, or at least international trade, and definitely focusing on this issue of specialization and comparative advantage. That's what I'll ask you about, the sort of core concepts of it, and then a bit maybe of these free trade agreements, the transnational corporations. I could ask about that too. But, actually, it's only 10:48. Oh man, my watch was fast. Oh, I have more time, guys. Let me go back to the slides. I think there's a few more things I could say. Current slide. Let's talk about trade deals and the U.S. partners. Our top trading partners, at least when I made this, we export more things to Canada, Mexico, Japan, China, UK. That's what the top 5 trading partners in order. A lot of people think we import the most stuff from China. It was not true, at least it wasn't true when I made this slide. Canada is our #1 importer. Partial of this is just we have this big border with Canada it's really easy to just go back and forth with goods. It's a very open border we have with Canada, and and they're very similar countries, the U.S. and Canada, and that's really why they're our #1 trading partner. Here I was talking about the TPP. That's called the Trans-Pacific Partnership. It was signed in 2016. What's the idea? It's to promote economic growth by lowering trade barriers, but there are these criticisms involved with it. And in fact, we got out of the TPP because Trump didn't like it, didn't have his name on it. So we're no longer in the TPP or NAFTA. We have this new thing called the USMCA. But let me just talk a little bit about the criticisms that were about the TPP. That's Trans-Pacific Partnership. A lot of people said the goal was to help businesses and not workers. They put these regulations in place that made darn sure that businesses would be able to make a ton of money and keep all their money, and that's great for businesses. But isn't the whole point of government to be for the people, not necessarily for corporations? And for example, if you make businesses more profitable, but you stifle competition, you're actually that's making it bad for consumers. So if it's actually worse for workers and it's worse for consumers, then it's hard to argue that this is a good trade deal. And I'm not really saying anything about that particular trade deal other than the one we're going to look at Friday. There's more to it than just what's your total economic productivity. I know the first part of this lecture was basically showing you, hey, trade is great because you can have more economic productivity and more consumption. But I do think other things matter. And the way you treat workers and manipulate currency, for example, should be considered as well. I'm probably out of time. Protectionism is this generic term for restraining trade, and it's generally thought of as a bad idea from economists. At one point in time, people thought protectionism was a great thing. It was a good thing to have your economy, your domestic economy grow. It was to protect it from all these other all these foreign companies trying to sell their goods in your market. Maybe that made sense at some point, especially when you have an infant industry. You have a brand new industry. You need for it to thrive, and you have to protect it from the well-established industries in other countries. You may make this argument, but now we're so far into globalization that this idea that we can go back to protectionism, it seems pretty crazy to me. Okay, I shouldn't have said that. I should say most economists don't favor it because it comes at too high of a cost. Like tariffs come at too high of a cost to make them worthwhile. Okay, I'm definitely over time now. You guys have any questions? You guys have any questions or comments? You have a debate homework Friday, which is give me. Okay, I didn't tell you exactly what the USMCA is, so it's maybe hard for you to make an opinion about that, but you can give me your opinion using economic arguments about trade deals in general, the free trade deals that exist. So go ahead and give me your homework about that. If you want to do research to learn about the USMCA exactly, that's great. I would love that. And then you form an opinion on that specific trade deal. But I won't require you to do that. If you just want to give me comments about trade deals, free trade in general, then you can do that. And we'll have our final quiz on Monday. Oh, and your term papers are due Monday. please work on your term papers. I'm willing to help you if you get stuck on something and just need to ask questions. I think I can help. But